Hello, welcome to Ethanol Producer Magazine Podcast. I am your host, Katie Schroeder. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Mark Binns, Technical Director with Hengye, about molecular sieves. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can transfer a little bit of information here that's useful to everybody.
Absolutely. Just to get started, what is the role of molecular sieves in fuel ethanol production?
It's the last step in the process because you can only distill ethanol to 190 proof, and they need molecular sieve to remove the last of the water so we can blend it in with fuel, and it burns well.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, what are kind of the most common questions you get asked?
Well, everybody wants to know, how long should my molecular sieve beads last in my MSU unit? And it's really a fairly straightforward question, and I think we've got an answer for it.
Awesome. Well, how would you answer it?
Well, the way I would answer it is you need to look at it from the economic standpoint. Your return on investment is what's most important. Typically with these ethanol plants, when the MSU becomes their bottleneck, the first thing they do is they start cutting their cycle times in order to hit their proof and their production goals. Well, this works okay for a little while, but frankly, cutting the cycle times puts stress on the whole system, not only the molecular sieve beads, but the whole system, your pumps, your valves, everything. So when you start cutting your molecular sieve timers, that's really when you need to start thinking about the big question. Why is this happening? Why do I have to start cutting cycle times in order to meet my production goals and my proof goals? Well, that's simply because the molecular sieve, all molecular sieve, regardless of manufacturer, begins to lose capacity over time. And I'm not talking about, we all have our upsets. You'll get the bed wet, you'll fluff the bed, you'll make a little bit of dust, you got to dry the bed out, whatever. And we help doing that. We do process optimization stuff all the time to help you get through these more difficult times, if you will, when you have to start cutting timers. But the important point here is when you start cutting timers is when you really need to start thinking about, why is this happening? Is there something wrong with my MSU unit? And that's part of when we can come into play. We do operational analysis all the time. Now, the second part comes after you've cut your timers as far as you can, because there are minimal limitations on the timers relative to the fluid dynamics within the bed. That's kind of beside the point, but it's pretty obvious that when you switch more often, you're putting more stress on the beads and the valves. So this is the beginning, if you will, of the degradation of the sieve beads. Your MSU will still operate, but it's not operating under the correct parameters, the design parameters, because you've had to make adjustments for the degradation of the sieve beads. Now, part two is when you actually have to start cutting production in order to meet your proof goals. So you're running your MSU, you've got your flow rates, but you're unable to make your proof at the flow rates that you're currently using. So what do? You have to cut your flow rates. When you cut your flow rates, you're reducing your overall production. And that's when your mole sieve unit starts costing you money. And just doing a few quick calculations, even if you change your feed rate by as little as 5 gallons per minute, that feed rate translates into about 4.3 gallons per minute of finished ethanol. Now, when you multiply that all out, that comes out on a 350-day working schedule running at 186 proof. I have to set all the parameters down. That's $4.3 million in lost revenue you're missing because your MSU unit is not running at the proper efficiency. Typically, it takes somewhere, all in, lost production, millwrights, cranes, molecular sieve beads, all that whole package will usually cost a plant somewhere around $700,000, including the shutdown time. Now, the point here is you can spend $700,000 to make $4.3 million, and that's your decision point. That's your ROI. When your production rates have been reduced to where you're losing money, you can quickly calculate the return on investment for those sieve beads. Now, $4.3 million over a year for a $700,000 investment roughly in about 3 months, you will have paid for the beads themselves and gotten your production rates up to where you and the company you work for expect them to be. There is money hiding in your mole sieve unit. You just have to find it, and we can help you find it. That's what we do. But as far as changing your molecular sieve beads out, when you start cutting production rates, that's when they'll pay for themselves.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, how do you summarize it into what you want producers to take away after this conversation?
Don't take an ad hoc look at your molecular sieve system. Contact us, contact somebody, contact your own engineers, look at it analytically and find out where your money is hiding. And that's where your return on investment comes. Typically with the mole sieve unit, if you're looking at 5 gallons per minute, if you're losing 5 gallons per minute on your production goals, then you are going to pay for those new mole sieve beads in 3 months. And that's really the summary. Take an analytical look at your process and see where it's costing you money.
Awesome. Just to zoom out, I'm really curious what your take is on the future and importance of fuel ethanol, not only for oil independence and the environment, but most importantly, the economy of the heartland.
Well, that's the most important thing to me, and I am literally praying for E15. In a previous podcast, I mentioned this. I watched the farming industry just collapse through the 70s, 80s, 90s. And with the advent of the fuel ethanol bill, the Renewable Fuels Act of 2007, and the mandate to produce fuel ethanol in the heartland from American corn has created thousands of jobs and will continue to do so. That's the most important thing to me. The environment, great. Oil dependence, great. But what I want to see is more jobs in Kansas and Iowa and Nebraska and the heartland where they belong.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all of that detailed insight and perspective, Mark. It's been great having you on the show. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Ethanol Producer Magazine podcast. Be sure to check out ethanolproducer.com for more industry insights and ethanol-related news.
And this is Mark Benz, and I'm out there. Find me, Hengye Inc. Technical Director. Thank you, everybody.